God, I love him. Oh yeah, spoilers for Apollo Justice or whatever. Okay, so this isn't going to be a character analysis in the traditional sense. Instead, I want to talk about a weird phenomenon in storytelling. It's not quite trope at this point. I can't even think of many characters this would fit, but I can't shake the weird feeling I've seen it before. Enter Spark Brushel, minty journalist and one of the most important characters in the entire game. No, the entire series. This smiling douchebag is introduced by Valent Gramarye and seems to be someone he'd rather not think about. All because he would rather report on a murder than a magic show. Huh. Well, alright, if you say so. We actually meet him trying to get an interview with the security guard at the detention center, unable to get one with Vera. Weirdly, unlike pretty much every other character we've seen to this point, he knows exactly who Trucy and Apollo are, even citing their oddities. This, fortunately, is just the beginning of the trip, so buckle yourselves in. In typical Ace Attorney side character fashion, he is an exceptionally eccentric character. He uses metaphors that make no sense, looks bizarre, and is constantly twitching, and just generally has weird animations. Such is the genius of Spark Brushel, but more on that later. For now, there's something more pressing to address. His theme. The eccentric theme is used for the weirder characters in Justice for All, most notably for Director Hottie and the weirdos in Turnabout Big Top, Trials and Tribulations, and Apollo Justice, again for Dr. Hickfield, Mike Meekins, and the man of the hour, Spark Brushel. All these characters have something in common. They're useless. They're either annoying and gimmicky side characters, or they just straight up cause problems for the player. There's one notable standout among them, obviously referring to our man. We don't get much out of him at first, he just gives a bunch of weirdly vague statements and metaphors, but in his constant articling, we get something very interesting at the end. Two very interesting things, actually. First, he has a very solid reason for refusing to say anything. Vera watching nervously from the corner. Shouldn't really matter, but for some reason her existence means he can't say what tipped him off to the interview. Second, he mentions the theft of a certain peachy oil painting, mentioning that he'd seen it somewhere before. More vague bullshit from our friend, but as we soon learn, this is far from unhelpful vague bullshit. Unprompted too. He genuinely just wants to help us, whether or not it's for his own journalistic gain is irrelevant because he outright states as much. He's giving his testimony on the condition that he gets to write about the story. He's not hiding anything, including his intentions. From here, I don't see any option other than to go through his chunks of screen time one by one, so first up is his account of the night in question. He says in no uncertain terms that no one else entered the room, that Drew died as soon as he took a sip of coffee, and even offers up the possibility of some sort of trick, as he puts it. This turns out to be the contradiction, as it doesn't work with current examination of the case. In spite of this glaring contradiction of the facts, and Clavier's not-so-subliminal suggestions, Brushel maintains absolute certainty in his testimony. He's not lying. He then testifies about seeing Drew put a letter in a yellow envelope, suggesting that that was the time the poison was ingested, although he thought it might have been a suicide. After being pressed on the color of the envelope not matching, he mentions that Drew scrambled to look for a stamp and shoved it in the mailbox, once again clearing up any and all confusion regarding his testimony. So far, he's 2 for 2 in terms of telling the truth and sticking to it. Finding the truth. The goal of every single Ace Attorney case. Finally, he's pressed on the red envelope which contains a letter sent 7 years ago. When mentioning Drew's talent, he gets sweaty in the armpits. He's not lying here, just omitting some crucial information. He genuinely thinks that Drew is talented, but didn't immediately divulge where his skill set lay. Once again, as soon as he's pressed on it, he gives us a straight answer. A far cry from the vague answers he was giving earlier. I'll give him half a point for this one, since he immediately offered the information in spite of his desire to maintain exclusivity on the story, but he was still omitting stuff intentionally. This leads into the whole stamp thing. Brushel, unprompted as usual, restates that Drew scrambled to get a stamp but couldn't find one. Once again, he hasn't changed his story and is, in fact, being more helpful than pretty much every other witness in the series. To this end, he even posits that the stamp itself may have been a murder weapon which, as we learn moments later, is true. Hey, even his suggestions are helpful! In spite of all of this, throughout all of Brushel's testimonies, the characters have acted annoyed with him or otherwise called him unreliable. Strange, considering how absolutely sure of everything he is and how his story hasn't changed once, even when presented with new information. Even the judge gets in on the fun. On a replay, this just felt wrong. In a sea of side characters who do nothing but cause problems and require major finagling to get the truth out of, the one character who is happy to speak the truth, his truth, is ridiculed by what is essentially the game itself. Depression aside, we're not quite done with the adventures of Mr. Mint. It's time for a unique specimen among Ace Attorney gameplay, the Mason system, where we learn that he's not only a Gramarye confidant, but a licensed notary too, which is crucial in getting Trucy her family's rightful magic. Thanks to Brushel, we learned that both he and Drew had been dealing with scopisthesia for the past 7 years, likely due to their involvement in the Magnifi murder case. Brushel turns out to have been close with Magnifi himself, noting how weird things were with the troupe as a whole. He's the one who reveals the love triangle involving Zack, Valent, and Thalassa, as well as the fact that Thalassa actually had another husband before Zack, and another child before Trucy. As if that isn't enough, it's also here that we discover that he knows about Trucy's power, since Thalassa and Magnifi had it as well, and is actually the one to make Phoenix realize how real Trucy's ability is. Oh boy. Okay, so to recap, this dipshit had intimate knowledge of the Gramarye lineage and magics, is a certified public notary, never once actively hindered the player's progress, and even stayed completely truthful pretty much the entire time. There is not a single character in this series like him. The only ones that even come close to his helpfulness are the protagonists themselves. So why is he treated as such a joke then? For comparison's sake, we actually don't have to go any farther back than the Mason system itself, with Officer Mike Meekins. Meekins is a twitchy bailiff we met all the way back in Rise from the Ashes, whose original theme is just Marvin Grossman's, aptly titled Reckonings and Regrets of an Aged Attorney. This has nothing to do with him, I just think it's very funny to imagine that a 22-year-old already considers himself aged and regretful. Meekins is so incredibly incompetent that we actually see him demoted from police officer in the 2 years between that case and this one. We learn that he somehow lost case files 4 times in 3 days. Yeepers! His entire role in this case is that, 7 years prior, he let Zack Gramarye escape. Working that in with his animations including chickens, yelling into a megaphone while he's likely a foot away, and choking himself with his handcuffs, he's understandably and clearly a menace that must be stopped. So why is our boy on the level of someone like Meekins? Well, it's simple. He is a joke. He's a toothbrush. He sweats profusely in his armpittle region when he's lying. He brushes his eyes. Mint! Characters in universe seem to be fairly consistently annoyed by him, and in some respects, they're right to be. He's an annoying journalist who's constantly on the prowl for his next story, and that rubs pretty much everyone the wrong way. But he more than makes up for that in what he provides, which, as we learn, is nothing but the cold hard truth and several lore bombs. Going back to Apollo Justice, I really didn't know what to expect. All I knew of Spark Brushel at the time was that he was a slightly annoying character who was just kind of there, and really weird. But in making this and generally replaying the game, I came to realize that he really is special as far as Ace Attorney characters go, especially side characters. This video has been in the works for a few months now, probably a good half a year, and I'm really just happy to have finally gotten it out. I have a couple other ideas I'm working on, and this time, I promise I'll get them out.